Welcome to another journey into the heart of the Varunian order. Today we explore a practice that has many roots in ancient tradition, fasting. And while explicit records of fasting in Norse and Germanic texts are relatively sparse or limited, we can look at the rituals and practices of these ancient peoples, as well as others along our lineage, for inspiration. Now, in Norse mythology, the Volvas were powerful seers and shamans of a type who practiced a form of magic known as seidr. And these rituals often involved entering trance states to communicate with the spiritual world. Preparing for such intense spiritual work obviously required purification and focus, much like fasting is used today to clear the mind and the body. And while specific records of fasting are rare, these intense preparations for these rituals suggest that fasting could have been a part of the practices. In the saga of Eric the Red, we read about the Volva Thornbjörg conducting a seidr ceremony during a very harsh winter. And the preparation for such ceremonies was often meticulous and would have involved chanting, singing, drumming, potentially some sensory deprivations akin to fasting. And this aligns with practices in various shamanic traditions worldwide where fasting is used to achieve spiritual clarity. So let's delve deeper into the concept of fasting as a spiritual and mental tool. In the Havamal, Odin's sacrifice on Yggdrasil is a profound example. For 9 days, 9 nights, Odin hung from the world tree without food, without water, wounded by his own spear. Now this ultimate sacrifice brought him the wisdom of the runes, and thus he was able to pass those on to us, humanity. And this tale underscores the importance of endurance and self-denial in the pursuit of knowledge and spiritual power. We know that fasting has numerous benefits. It can clear the mind, enhance focus, deepen spiritual connections, and for the Varunian order specifically, fasting is not just about abstaining from food. It's a ritual of discipline, of sacrifice, and it reflects the practices and dedications of our ancestors. And we could talk about some practical tips here as well for starting your fasting journey. So first off, we're going to talk about preparations. You want to set clear intentions, prepare your body by gradually reducing food intake before the fast. And what do we mean by this? Preparing and setting intentions is very important. Specifically, what are you hoping to gain? Is this specifically for weight loss? Is it purification before bloat? What is the purpose that we're trying to achieve? For me at the moment, I'm working on physical fitness, so it's a lot about weight loss for me and cutting down to be healthier. But what I would recommend is, aside from having an intention in mind and where you're hoping to go with this, what your goals are, you also want to start gradually reducing food. If so, don't jump into a 3-day fast, 4 or 5-day fast. You'll see people online, and this is quite possible depending on your body fat percentage and other factors, going 30, 60, 90 days. These are extreme cases. Most people won't need to do that, won't want to do that. And even if something like that is your goal further down the line, you'll want to start with small intermittent fasting windows. And so usually what this will look like for women might be 4-hour windows, eating windows a day. For men, it's often, reverse it, 6 hours for women eating windows, and then 4 hours for men. But it's all personal preference. If you can go longer, if you can go shorter, but start with a smaller window like that. So let's say from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. Is when I'm allowed to eat. And outside that window of time, I'm not eating anything. Most of that is hours spent sleeping anyway. My cat's knocking over lights over here. Most of that's spent sleeping anyway, so that's free hours that you get away with, free hours where you don't even notice you're fasting because you're asleep. But start with those smaller eating periods and then work your way up from there if you do intend to do longer fasts. I just completed a 72-hour fast, wasn't hungry at all the whole time, felt amazing, was perfectly fine when I got off it, but that's because I have been doing this a while and I'm used to it, and I worked my way up to that point. And then of course during your fast you'll want to make sure that you stay hydrated. If you're going more than 1 or 2 days, you usually want to start supplementing electrolytes. I could make further videos about that as far as what you should take, but there's a lot of information out there already. Your biggest enemy is going to be boredom. So if you're not used to fasting, you'll get bored. You'll want to take time to focus on hobbies, um, do word puzzles, play a game that you're really into, play the guitar, take hikes, light activity, not strenuous activity. Most people can't handle heavy activity and workouts during fasting. Some people can, like personal, feel your body out. It's all up to you and how you feel during. And that's kind of more the rule during the fasts as well. If you do decide to do an extended fast, you're going more than, say, a day or two, you'll always want to stop if you feel bad. So you just go as long as you feel able. If you're still feeling great, you're 5 days in, you're getting your electrolytes, you're getting your water, and you feel wonderful, then listen to your body. But if you feel off in any way, you can always restart. You can always start the process again. And again, I'm speaking from the point of view of weight loss. If weight loss is not your goal, anything over, say, a 3 or 4 day seems kind of excessive in my opinion. But again, each to their own, depending on your goals and what you're trying to achieve. If it's that spiritual connection, that purifying of the body, you may want to go a little longer. Let's talk about breaking the fast. When you do break your fast, if it's only been a day or two, you're not going to have too much of a gastrointestinal issue with really anything you eat, but it's still recommended to focus on healthy foods, light foods. Start with a soup or a bone broth, something like that, usually to ease your way back into food. You're going to have a higher or a larger issue if this is an extended fast. So if you're over 3, 4, 5 days in, you're going to see those issues compound. You're going to have, on some type of sliding scale. Like if you're 10 days in and you decide to just go have some orange chicken and chow mein and a rice bowl and a soda, you're going to be in for a bad time. And the longer extended fasts especially, you can have something known as refeeding syndrome, which is actually a real condition that happens and you could be hospitalized for. So you want to make sure that you refeed appropriately. But those are all way more detailed concepts we can get into in other videos. Point of this one really being that fasting is an amazing process, an amazing practice, and practically anyone can incorporate it into their life. Obviously, I'm not a medical professional. This is not a medical channel or page or organization, nor is it any type of medical advice. It shouldn't be interpreted as such. I'm not that person for you. And I also can't advise you as to whether fasting is the right path for you. But I will say that practically anyone could do it, at least in small bursts, especially the intermittent fasting. 24-hour fasts, one can work up to. Should be relatively easy for most. Obviously, certain conditions, if you're worried about it or you have other things going on, you'll want to talk to your doctor. As always, that's the blanket disclaimer. But I found it benefits my life quite a bit. And when I need to get back on track, especially with weight loss, which is what I'm working on at the moment, getting back into peak physical condition, it's a great tool for all of that, for all of those purposes and more. If you're looking for that spiritual connection, that, like we've said, many shamanic practices have incorporated over the years, that deprivation of food really allows the body to reset in all ways. So not only spiritually, but just physically. All of your organs that process food get a rest. Your body gets to reset. There's a process known as autophagy, where your cells are actually, or your body is actually targeting cancerous cells that need to be cleared out anyway. I want to say it's 72 hours in, the human growth hormone spikes to like the highest it ever is, that you'll ever naturally have it be, to my knowledge. So that's pretty amazing. If you're doing a lot of muscle building, been bulking up, and you're going to hit like a really nice recovery streak and get back into your workouts after the fast, that would be a great option for you as well. Just a million benefits, but especially here at the Verunian Order, we do it not only for all those reasons, but just for the honoring of the whole concept of sacrifice, what each of our ancestors along the way, along our lineages, along our bloodlines, sacrificed and gave up just to make sure that you could be here today. So that's an incredibly powerful concept. And I feel myself channeling those thoughts, those energies every time that I engage in a fast. So when you're 2 days in, 3 days in, and I'm thinking it's a little bit of a struggle, or I have a little bit of a hunger pang when I'm getting back into it, if I'm not used to fasting for a while, I think about those things, and it really does become a ritual in and of itself, and something that allows us to connect to our past. Whether or not our ancestors specifically, specifically Germanic or Nordic ancestors, practiced fasting, I would say less likely at that time period, because more centered around celebrating food, and food might have been harder to obtain during those times. So that wouldn't have been as much of a practice, I wouldn't think, except for potentially spiritual leaders, as we were discussing. So, but regardless, we know that they struggled, they sacrificed, and that's the imagery I channel, is the imagery of Tyr, of that ultimate sacrifice, of Odin granting us the runes and hanging on Yggdrasil for 9 days, 9 nights. All powerful stuff, and that's why we do it, to get in touch with those ancestors and to really bring us back spiritually and physically to where we should be. So I was planning on keeping this a little brief, a little more brief than that, but in summary, that's what that idea of fasting, the concept of fasting, means to the Varunian order, and that's why we do it. I often like to practice my fasts on Tuesday for Tyr. It is Thursday. Some of you may have other preferences. Maybe you choose Wednesday, but I like to keep it consistent and stick with 1 day a week at least, especially at my current body fat percentage, trying to focus on losing weight. I don't want to advise too much on those with a lower percentage as far as what's possible for you, but I believe at least an intermittent fast, which is just at least probably one main meal for that day, would be possible even for those with very low percentages, and I see that as a dedication of faith in following this path. So thanks for listening. See you on future videos.